In today's video, I'm going to show you how to paint a really simple watercolor winter night scene. And I think even if you're totally a beginner with this, you'll be able to create something unique and special. So to get the watercolor effect, I'm using the Storybook paper texture and the Alpine forced brushes. And I'll put links to all of that in the description. The first thing I'm going to do is use the fuzzy round brush and a kind of gray, a bluish gray color, and I'll quickly make a background wash. And I'm going to try to do a lot of side-to-side strokes. And after that, I'm going to use the water blender here, the regular blender, and maybe around 30 or 40%. I'll just kind of loosely soften this up. Now, most of the brushes have a lot of transparency, but it's going to be a problem for me, so I need to get rid of the transparency with this background wash, but at the same time, I want to keep the texture. So the way I'm going to do that is, here's the layer with the wash. I'll duplicate it. And then here's the bottom layer. I'm going to go over here to the adjustments, hue, saturation, and brightness. And I'll raise the brightness up to max. And you can see in the layers panel, it's basically two copies of the same layer. Just the bottom one is pure white. So I'm just going to quickly merge those two together. And with the transparency gone, I can tap on this layer, set it to alpha lock, and it's going to make the rest of the painting process super easy. The next brush I'm going to use here is one of these pine tree brushes. This brush kit has a lot to choose from, but I think the top one here, the abstract pine, is my favorite one. For the color, same color, but I think I'll slightly darken it. And maybe around 50 or 60%, I'm going to add some pine trees real quickly here. And after that first layer of pine trees, I've left a gap in the middle because later I'm going to paint a little cabin there. For now, I'm going to go down and grab a different water blender. This time I'm going to use the misty one. Maybe around 30 or 40% again. And I'm just going to carefully tap around. And this is going to make the trees kind of blend into the background, but it's still going to keep a lot of the structure and texture there. Now the house is going to go here, so I'm going to make sure I do a lot of blending there, so I've got a smooth place for that. Next, using the same tree brush that I used before, the abstract one, and a slightly darker color, I'll do another line of trees, I think using the same size there. And then I'll choose an even darker color here, almost black, and do a few dark trees. Now again, I want to keep this area pretty smooth, so I'll use the water blender one more time. I think this scene could use a little bit of snow, so I'm going to change to the snowy speckles brush. I'll choose pure white, and I'm just going to loosely go over this. And the reason none of this is going beyond the edges, of course, is because we have the alpha lock on. If you remember earlier, we enabled this, and that's just sort of masking everything so it doesn't go beyond the background. And I want this scene to be a deep winter scene, so there's going to be a lot of snow on the trees. So there's a brush for that, but first I need to do this on its own layer. So I'll make a new layer above everything. I'll select pure white, and I'm going to change to the Snowy Boughs soft brush. Maybe again 30 or 40%, and I'm going to add some snow to these trees. Often it looks a little bit too intense, especially for a dark kind of night scene like this. So I'm going to lower the transparency of that layer, just about like that, and then I'll merge it together with the background. So now once the scene is set, I can do the house, and the house is super easy, and that's aided by the fact that this is a night scene, and we can hide any kind of details in the shadows. So I'm going to make sure that I've got this layer selected, the layer where everything is merged together. I'll use the selection tool, set to freehand, and we'll zoom in, and I'm going to roughly outline basically a roof line, but not a lot of tricks here, just doing some interesting angular shapes. There, I think that'll do it. I'll go to my adjustments, and I'll lower the brightness, just to kind of suggest that there's a house there, or something there in the trees. And again, I'll use the freehand selection tool, and I'll just kind of facet it a little bit and make a couple of random geometric selections again. Hue, saturation, and brightness. And this time I'll slightly brighten those. And I'm going to go over this a few times and just do a couple of random geometric selections and darken them and brighten them, just to give the suggestion that there's something out there that has a structure. There we go. You know, it might have looked like I really knew what I was doing, but I promise a lot of this stuff is pretty random. Now, where the house here meets the ground, I want to blur that away. So I'm going to grab the same blender tool I used before, the misty one. Maybe a lot smaller this time, around 20%, and I'll just tap along the bottom edge there. And maybe anywhere else on the house where I don't quite like the way it looks. And once the silhouette for the house is done, I can add the windows, and this is so easy and so much fun. So I'll make a new layer above the background for that. I'm going to choose a bright yellow color for the windows. Maybe something a little more orange, I guess. For the brush, I'll use the Forster Fine Liner, and maybe around 10%. I'm going to go in there and add a bunch of rectangles wherever I think a window might look nice. Next, I'm going to use the selection tool again, set to freehand, and on each of these windows, I'm going to make a little bit of a weird random selection, and this is to give the hint that there's something in the windows. There we go, so I'll circle back and reconnect it. I just did this crazy selection just all at once, so it's more convenient. Now when I go to my adjustments here, I can darken it, and you can see in each window there's a little bit of an abstract shape, so I'll try not to overdo it. I think that's dark enough. Then I'm going to use my eraser brush, and I've set that to the Forster Fine Liner, and maybe around 3, 4, 5%. You can go in there and add a little bit of mullion on these windows. And I'm just erasing through the window, and it's dark obviously because it's showing the painting behind. There we go, that's pretty good. And to keep this simple, I'm going to merge it down here so everything is once again on one layer. And if you want to, you can add a little bit of lighting from these windows interacting with the trees. And this is really easy, especially since we still have that same yellow color selected. So again, I'll make a new layer above the background. Same brush as before, the Forster Fine Liner. Maybe a little bit larger this time. And I'm just going to add some lines on the trees, just as if this light was catching on something out here and reflecting back. Now the reason I did these lines on their own layer is because I want to use the Gaussian Blur. So I'm going to make sure that the right layer here is selected. I'll go to my adjustments, Gaussian Blur, and I'll make those pretty soft. I think something like that's good. Then I'll lower the opacity of this. The reflections, they shouldn't be as bright as the windows, but they still should be a little bit noticeable. So I think around 50% is good, and I'll merge those down. And if you want to go ahead and add some more details to the scene, one thing you can try is to add some windows out in the distance, as if maybe there's a mountain or a hill back there, and through the snow and the fog here, you can just see a few window lights. There we go. It's just a small optional thing that can make you kind of think a little bit more when you look at this painting. Now at this point, this painting could be totally done, but there's two little tricks I like to do at the end here to make this look more kind of like original watercolor. So most of the colors here are pretty uniform, so I want to add a color variation effect. So I'm going to use the selection tool, set to freehand, and I'll make a random crazy selection all over the painting here. I'll feather it out quite a bit, hue, saturation, and brightness, and I'll just shift the hue and try to find an interesting secondary color. And it's okay to go bold with this, so I think I'll drop in a really strong purple tone in there. Now, abstract paintings will often have, they often do them with very wet watercolor, so you get what's called a hard edge or a back run. And that's basically like along the edge here where the watercolor dries, there'll be a very dark edge. And there's an easy way to get that look in Procreate. So we'll zoom out here. And this trick only works if everything is on one layer. So I just want to make sure that's the case. And alpha lock is still on. You won't see it on the video, but I can see this kind of checkerboard thing along the edge of the thumbnail. So I'll tap on this layer. You can see alpha lock is checked. I'll just tap it to turn it off. I'm going to grab the selection tool again, set it to automatic, and I'm going to click and drag to select all the white. And you can see I don't want to select it too much, like that's way too much. I just want to get the white area all the way up to the edge of the painting. Now if I zoom in here, you can see where the selection meets. If I use the feather tool here, you can see I can actually move the edge of that selection. So 0 is here. I think I'll move it just about 5%. Then I can go to hue, saturation, and brightness. And you can see by moving the selection using the feather option, I can darken that edge. So I just want to do it a little bit. I'll also saturate it a little bit there. And it's a very subtle thing, but you do notice it, and it definitely looks a lot nicer that way. And there we go. This scene is all done, and here's the final result. In most of my watercolor videos, I give a sketch. In this one, I didn't, and that's because this technique is very modular, and I think even if you're a beginner, you'll be able to kind of combine it and create something totally unique. And if you like this video and you think I've earned it, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And other than that, thanks again for all your support. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.